Welcome back to Petty Astrology. I'm your host, Kaycee Felton-Lui. I think this is going to be a bit of a weird Sagittarius season. It's big energy, it's gregarious at times. Not every Sagittarian, don't at me, but it's not necessarily subtle, right? And this is a very reflective, contemplative Sagittarius season in general because we have just entered this Mercury retrograde, which is also in Sagittarius right now. And it'll be there until December 15th when it stations direct. So as much as Sagittarius energy is about expansion and trying new things and indulging at times, it doesn't necessarily like to be contained. So we have the brakes on a little bit this Sagittarius season with the astrology that's also happening. And so let that be okay. If this holiday season feels a little bit different this year, that's okay. Remember, we just had Pluto move into Aquarius for the next 20 years almost. And, the world is feeling strange and probably in ways that we're not necessarily excited about. And I'll talk more about that in this episode because I have thoughts. But I just want to give us all permission to not have to perform anything this holiday season, right? There's so many expectations and history and personal family history that all plays into our feelings around this time of year especially. And with the world being the way that it is right now, there's a lot of emotions happening, and feel your feelings. Your feelings are a reflection of your experience. But let it be okay that it's a more thoughtful time of year. And just remember that our mind is really powerful. And that's an important part of the Mercury retrograde experience. We got to step back. We got to slow down. We got to re-examine things. Maybe mindsets that have become normal to us, just used to it. Do we want to be used to it? Is there a different way that we could be approaching this thought process, this belief, this experience in the moment? Choices, lots of choices. And when you choose your own adventure, which is the nature of Sagittarius energy, I think at its core, you want to be thoughtful about what the adventure you're choosing is going to be. What's it going to feel like? You're the narrator of the adventure. And the narrator is a character, right? We know that. So, there's a lot to be done this season. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get stuff done. You can't be active. That's not what I'm saying. But it might just have a different flavor to it, a little bit more contemplative. And there's a reason for that, right? We need to figure some stuff out before we move forward. And I think the astrology this week is going to help us do that. Today on the podcast, I talk about the activating Sagittarius new moon happening on November 30th, then a look at the astrology of the week ahead, and my thoughts on how to navigate this holiday season. Every once in a while, we get a month where we have 2 new moons in the same month, and it's just how the timing ends up working out. And this is one of those months. Our second new moon is going to be on Saturday, November 30th, and it's happening at 10:21 p.m. Pacific time. So it'll be early in the morning on Sunday for the folks on the East Coast of the United States, This new moon is happening at 9 degrees and 33 minutes of Sagittarius. So if you find where that is in your personal astrology chart, the house that that lands in is going to give you a little bit more insight on what area of life this is going to impact for you individually. Because as always, astrology is very individual. There are things that we can talk about on a more collective level, as I do on this podcast, but it's more general. It's not going to land on everybody the same way. So keep that in mind. But first, I want to talk about my thoughts on this new moon's energy and the collective. We are at a really interesting moment in time because we have just entered the Pluto and Aquarius era for the next 19 years. And we have also just had this big election in the United States that has caused a lot of disruption. I think a lot of people were surprised by the fact that this could be a possibility. And, a lot of people here in the United States and around the world aren't exactly happy about the results of this election and the way that things are evolving right at this moment in time. So what I have observed in this past little while, because remember, that first new moon that we had in November was on the 1st. So it was just like right before the United States elections. And what I've noticed is that unless somebody is a Trump voter, they're generally not feeling great right now. There's a lot of pessimism. And I'm not saying that it's not warranted, that people don't have legitimate things to be concerned about. That is not what I'm about to say. But what I am noticing is a lot of people already assuming that every bad thing is going to be able to be executed perfectly. And unfortunately, with the balance of power being the way that it is, the Republicans have a lot of control that they're about to come into. And that's pretty scary for those of us that are parts of marginalized communities, those of us who are undocumented or know people who are undocumented. There's a lot of people who are going to get the shit end of the stick if Republicans are able to do the things that they say they want to do. And what I've noticed is that people have been painting a really bleak picture of the next few years or even longer. And when I've talked about the election and politics in general, whether you're in the United States or anywhere else in the globe, I have talked about our need to be active, to be engaged, and to be prepared, which is one of the reasons why I'm bothered that certain, quote unquote leaders are still fanning these possibilities that maybe we're not going to have a Republican presidency somehow. And whether or not that is true, we need to look at the reality that's in front of us right now and understand that we need to be using this time to get ourselves ready. Because I think one of the scariest things about a Trump presidency is he is such a wild card. The man has wild card energy already. And as I talked about in the election episode, his personal astrology right now, it makes it difficult to know exactly which direction he's going to go in. And we already kind of know this about Trump, is like he seems to react well to flattery and people that are in that moment, buddies of his. So it leaves a lot of room in terms of like predicting exactly what he's going to do. There's a lot of variables. And all this to say that I really want us to be careful about how we are painting the image of the future. It is important that we have our feet on the ground, that we look at reality, that we look at the facts that we have in front of us at the moment to the best of our ability, and real facts, not just, some talking head or a random blogger or someone in the comment section whose cousin works at the Pentagon or whatever, real information. But when we let uncertainty shape our vision for the future and we choose the worst case scenario, we're really disempowering ourselves in a lot of ways. it's important to be prepared. And there are some very serious things, like I said, that we should factor into our preparations. But assuming that everything is going to just be a total hellish nightmare and that nobody is going to step up and organize resistance is really disempowering ourselves, because Sagittarius energy is about beliefs. It is about vision. And whether we recognize it or not, we are all carrying one around, right? We don't know exactly what the future holds, but we have something in our minds of, where we're going to be in the next little while. And when I see a lot of people leaning into these worst case scenarios, it concerns me that people are just normalizing what's potentially about to happen. They're assuming the success of all of these efforts, that there's not going to be any backlash. And so why even try? And I know it's going to sound a little bit odd to say, but I think a lot of people that are engaging in this worst case scenario thinking are doing that because it's more comfortable for them to imagine that they're totally disempowered, that there's really nothing that can be done to stop what may potentially happen. And in some sense, believing in this worst case scenario is comforting because it's this false idea that we know what's going to happen. And therefore, that uncertainty that so many of us have difficulty holding kind of goes out the window. So on a collective level, with this new moon in Sagittarius, my hope is that we each individually take a look at our vision for the future, because it may not be what it was a month ago. We may have thought, things would be a little bit different right now. And we may have found ourselves slipping into some of this really negative, defeatist thinking. And that's really not going to help us make the best out of whatever happens next. Because remember, Pluto is in Aquarius now. Things are different. And the power is really shifting to what we can do together. Because there's a hell of a lot more of us who don't want to live under fascism, who are part of marginalized groups, who are part of the working class that is going to be hit really hard by some of the things that are being proposed. But if a lot of people are thinking, well, we already know how this is going to go, it's going to be bad, we're fucking screwed, and, might as well throw in the towel now and, just fend for ourselves, well, we're closing off a lot of opportunities that are going to present themselves as we move forward. Sagittarius energy is very adventurous on a certain level. It benefits from stepping outside of what you know or what you think you know, or the experiences that you've had already. One of the beautiful things about Sagittarius energy is that it tends to look for opportunities. And at the highest level, I would say opportunities in all things, not just the things that seem good on the outside, right? Life is not full of experiences that are only good. And we do learn from the bad experiences. We grow from the challenges. And that is not to say that, being a fascist is acceptable or builds character. Not what I'm saying. But remember what I've said about Pluto and Aquarius. The game is changing. Things that would have felt impossible even just a year ago may actually be possible now. There are doors and windows of opportunity opening everywhere. And so my hope for the collective with this Sagittarius new moon is that we start looking for those opportunities, that we find each other, and that we set out on adventures together, right? And I know this is probably not the adventure most of us wanted to go on, but it is the collective experience that we're facing right now. And as I've said before, none of the stuff that we're facing right now just happened overnight. This has been decades of organizing and groundwork and strategy that has led to the moment that we're in right now. And so maintaining the status quo, not stepping out of our comfort zone, not looking for those opportunities, it stunts our growth. And it normalizes potential future realities that we should not be accepting. We should not say, oh, you want to deport all these people? That's going to be really bad. No, we should say, you want to deport all these people? You're going to have to deal with me and my community making that really hard for you first. If we really were doomed, there'd be no point in fighting back. But we're not doomed. And we need to start acting like it. So on a personal level, if you have been envisioning all of the bad shit that's about to happen, I'd like you to take a break. And I'd like you to start turning that dial to envisioning a future that you want. Envisioning a reality where, yeah, maybe fascists are doing horrible shit. But what would resistance to that look like for you? And what is the best case scenario outcome of you engaging in that resistance? Because that is where the power, the learning, and the opportunity is. And Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which oftentimes people associate with luck, which is something we could talk about that at another time. But if you want to talk about lucky in the reality that we're looking forward at right now is that we do have each other, that we are all in this together on some level. And of course, there are people that don't really see themselves as connected to us or to marginalized groups of people, but we don't need to focus on them. There's so much focus on the bad guys, the people that we don't align with, right? But are you looking around and seeing all the people that have a problem with this shit? The people that maybe they don't know exactly what to do, but they're not okay with it, right? We need to join forces with each other. Focus on building that vision forward together and the opportunities that we're going to have to create our new reality, to be the shapers of our own reality. New moons are always about manifesting, and that means shaping our reality the way that an artist might shape their sculpture. So when we're collaborating with others in this moment, we need to look at what the vision is. Where are we going? What do we want out of this whole thing? Because we have the opportunity to shape something better. So contemplating what that better thing is and what it might feel like and what you might learn from it is going to give us a lot more mileage than prematurely accepting defeat. So for this new moon, I really want to encourage you to do something where you're envisioning that future for yourself, and make sure that you're thinking about more on a collective level, but also, in your personal life, your personal goals that don't have anything to do necessarily with fighting fascism, all right? And when we set intentions, what we're doing is deciding how we'd like to channel a particular energy and what we want to channel it into and how we're going to use our own energy to move in that direction. So that vision is a really important piece. And with this Sagittarius new moon, I would really recommend doing some kind of vision board or some kind of creative project where you're spelling out what it is you're trying to create, something that you can revisit. This new moon is pretty activating. It's trine Mars in Leo. So, people are probably going to be feeling very passionate. And it's interesting because the rest of the astrology here, we've got Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, and it's opposing Jupiter in Gemini, which is also retrograde. So, I think people are going to be really in their beliefs and things that they feel really lit up about, right? And so you may feel like kind of running off with the plot with this energy. And I'm going to encourage you to hold the reins a little bit and not rein in your imagination so much or your perspective vision. That's all great. As that goofy little saying goes, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you land among the stars, right? I like that for this Sagittarius new moon because, most of the time our visions don't pan out exactly how we thought they would, but they take us somewhere. Without the vision, many of us wouldn't even get off the couch. But at least we are living and moving and growing and learning. And if you can maintain a little bit of that Sagittarian faith that that'll take you where you need to go, then that's everything. But instead of just charging off with that vision, I want us to really take some time to get our minds right. Again, Mercury is retrograde right now, so if we have some big, brilliant new idea that we've never had before, we want to start off on this new project, it's probably not the best time to get it started. But the energy is really lending itself to mulling these things over and evaluating whether or not our vision really has the juice we need for our long-term aims. We can adjust and reassess and reevaluate the vision as we go. Doesn't have to be set in stone, but the vision is important. It's our North Star, and it's our mindset, how we approach things mentally, how we talk to ourselves, how we think about the world around us. Our perspective shapes what we think is possible. Our perspective shapes what we do and how we do it. So for this Sagittarius new moon, mindset is where the magic is. Let's zoom out and look at our week ahead, shall we? So the day that this podcast comes out is Wednesday, November 27th. And we have the Sun in Sagittarius trining off with Mars in Leo. And that's happening very early in the morning. So it'll be kind of coming out of that trine just a bit as the day progresses. But all this to say, this is a really good day to lean into that Mercury retrograde energy and get some stuff done. And when I say get some stuff done, probably not so much like chores around the house, although, that may be your thing. But I would say that this energy is really beneficial for things that you feel a little bit more passionate about. And maybe you are passionate about doing chores around the house. Maybe you have some exciting loved ones coming over this week and it fills you with passion to clean your home and make it ready for guests. That's all good. Do your thing. But, for those of us who that's really not the most fun thing for us, I would say Wednesday, very helpful energy to revisit, tweak, edit, revise, and work on any projects that are like passion projects of some kind for you. So, you can get a lot done during Mercury retrograde. And of course, it's the holiday season. I know that this is the time of year where for a lot of us, things just get really busy. But the 27th is a day to be busy in a good way, if you can. And then later in the afternoon here on the West Coast at 4:20 p.m. Pacific time, we have the moon moving into Scorpio. And so this is a little bit of a deeper energy. And of course, now that Pluto is in Aquarius, we have the moon squaring off with Pluto right at the get-go. So evening time on Wednesday is probably going to feel a little bit more serious and contemplative. And don't forget that we are leading up to that new moon on the 30th. So when this podcast comes out, we're already kind of in that lead up to the new moon. And this is the time where it tends to be a little bit more uncomfortable for us because thoughts, emotions are coming up, and they're coming up because they're there to reveal what it is you need to be envisioning for this new moon. And usually when we create visions, it's because our present reality isn't exactly where we want to be in some way. Usually there is some discomfort or just some desire for something more. So be sure to listen to those things for your own sake, because all of the experiences, whether they're good, bad, frustrating, challenging, They're telling you something. And they may be providing some information about what it is that you need to step up to the plate on for the Sagittarius new moon. Now, I know that in the United States we have a pretty big holiday happening this Thursday, and I am going to spare you all my Thanksgiving rant, right? You know where I stand. I'm an anti-imperialist. I have never really liked the messaging behind Thanksgiving. It's colonial propaganda. We know that, right? So what I would suggest, I use it as a day to spend time with my family because it's a day that we all have it off. So I will do some family stuff, and that's about the extent of it for me. But with the moon being in Scorpio and just the general vibes of that day, if you are going to be spending time with loved ones who you know are maybe on a different political plane than you are, or, there happens to be a lot of conflict, you don't have to be an astrologer to know that that is likely to come up this year of all years. We just finished this election. A lot of people are having big feelings about it one way or another. So the energy of the day is primed for reactivity. People may not be as considerate as we'd like them to be, and that might be us too. So I just want to offer that, if you're kind of feeling like you don't want to spend time with certain people just because it's a holiday, you could always get sick last minute. You could always have a change of plans that you couldn't help, right? And if you are spending time with other people, just remember that, you can always take a deep breath before you respond to something. You can always say, you know what, I don't want to talk about this right now. Or if somebody says something that's just plain fucked up, you can call them out. And, it might turn into a thing, so just be prepared, but do what you gotta do, all right? I understand. A lot of us are related to people who have horrible beliefs. And what we don't want to do is normalize those beliefs and make it acceptable for people to be bigots and fascists and Nazis. Because what's a Nazi supporter? That's right, a Nazi. I have people in my family who believe things that I find horrific. And some of the choices that I've made around that is that if I don't have to share space with those people, I'm not going to. It's kind of a weddings and funerals type vibe over there with me. Maybe we happen to be in the same space, but I don't show up at family holidays if I can avoid it, knowing that certain people are going to be there. Boundaries are really important. And part of that is realizing that sometimes the only leverage that we have is our presence. And so we may want to reevaluate what that means given our situation. Mercury is retrograde. Plans change all the time. Things don't go as expected. So just because you made certain plans or you agreed to certain things doesn't mean that that can't change. Doesn't mean that you have to force yourself or put yourself in a position to be around people that are not healthy for you or not healthy for the energy that you're trying to build in your life. The evening of Thursday, November 28th, we might be feeling a little bit more serious. So if you're somebody who's kind of opting out of the whole holiday thing and you're spending time alone, I would just plan something that is comforting to you, something that, maybe you can kind of sink your teeth into and get lost in, because it may be a little bit on the emotional side. And this is an emotional time of year for a lot of people, regardless of how you feel about the holiday season. It's just, there's a lot of stuff coming up around this time of year. So make sure that you are planning things to look forward to and that you have a plan for when those big emotions come up. And not to bypass those emotions, but to just make a safe container for yourself to feel how you're feeling. But you can channel those emotions into movement, into creativity, into spirituality, into connecting with other people who you have some trust with. And so if that is the case for you, I would say, maybe make some time to connect with people or things that are deeply meaningful to you over this next few days. The more that we practice being a safe place to feel how we feel, I think that it becomes easier to navigate challenging emotions. Because not only do we tend to dislike challenging emotions, but we also tend to run away from them because it's like, I don't want to feel this way. And then so it all gets like pushed down and kind of compacted, and it can fester. And so when we can bring things to light and just accept that, feelings come and go like waves, they're neither good nor bad. They're just information. They're just part of our experience. Then it becomes a lot easier to hold ourselves through those moments and work with them instead of against them. Accepting, maybe I feel more serious tonight, so maybe I want to inject a little fun into the situation. Or maybe it's okay to feel serious, and maybe I want to channel that seriousness into something that means something to me. And again, in the days leading up to that new moon on Saturday, a lot of these things are going to be stirred up, and they are giving us guidance about the seeds that we need to plant for this new moon. It's a new chapter, a new phase, it's a reset, and it's time to realign with the vision that we have for ourselves and our individual and collective futures. I do think that we're going to be in our feelings to some degree because Sunday is December 1st, and it's hitting us that the year is almost over. And I don't know about you, but 2024 has flown by for me. It just has felt like one thing after another, and the astrology reflects that. We've just been getting it from all sides. So, take a moment to appreciate, like, you've made it through 11 months of a really challenging year. And you've grown a lot, you've learned a lot, and you're going to keep growing and learning. But you're better now at navigating things than you were January 1st of this year. I can guarantee it. So a lot of opportunities for big feelings in the astrology this week. And that can be a lovely thing. That can be a cathartic thing. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to mean that everybody's fighting over the dinner table. We get to set our limits to some degree, and we also get to choose our own adventures. So remember to do that. Remember to make those choices actively, and not because other people want you to, or because it's what's socially expected or accepted. You can break free from that. You can step outside of that comfort zone. And the Sagittarius energy that's in the air right now is supportive of that. Is supportive of you contemplating how you might want to do that. Monday, December 2nd, we have Venus trining off with Uranus. And this is also energy that can be very inspirational. And it may be inspirational in terms of your creativity, but it could also be inspirational in terms of your relationships with people that you are closest to. There's opportunity for inspired connection. So it's a day that you want to be open to maybe unexpected things popping up, whether it's plans with people or creative inspiration. It could even be, unexpected money or some other practical resource dropping in unexpectedly. So that can be really nice. The moon moves into Capricorn that day as well, so it'll feel a little bit more grounded, a little bit more practical. And that may be because some of us are going back to work after a holiday weekend. It really has those vibes of like, well, back to business. But at the same time, like I said, there is this element of the unexpected in there. So it could still be a very interesting day. But in the days following this new moon, it's a really good idea to just continue practicing manifesting. And what I mean by that is the energy that you're kind of trying to set for your intentions for the Sagittarius new moon, embody it as much as possible in the following days. So I would say at least through Tuesday, make a very conscious effort to practice the mindset and practice embodying whatever that vision is for yourself, because I think it'll be easier to kind of train yourself to move in that direction and just set a tone. The Mercury retrograde contemplation and reevaluation that is happening in the background here, I think is going to come to a bit of a head on Wednesday, December 4th. That's the day Mercury retrograde is opposing Jupiter retrograde. And it's funny because they are in one another's signs, which is in astrology what we call mutual reception. So the image I keep getting is like this ping pong ball, back and forth, reevaluating your mindset, reevaluating how that shapes your beliefs, and how your beliefs shape your mindset. So there's a lot of contemplation happening in this week ahead. Make sure it's contemplation and thoughtfulness and not so much brooding, because that's really not the tone that we want to set. Like I said, it's a bit disempowering, and I think we can be a lot more creative than that. One thing I want to mention about Monday, December 2nd, like I said, Venus is trining off with Uranus, which is the planet of the unexpected. And Venus, of course, rules money, among other things. And it just so happens that that is the day that I am going to be running a very special patron-only reading sale. And it's the end of a year. I know it's been a challenging year. I know our budgets are tight. So what I did is I created a new little mini transit reading where I look at your future for the next couple of months, what the themes are, and whatever it is that you're looking to focus on or accomplish during those couple months, you can let me know and I'll take a look. But we really are starting a new chapter right now together. And the goal of this little reading is, one, to make it affordable for y'all, so I made it as cheap as I possibly could. And two, to get people not only prepared, but also excited about what they have coming up for them. Because astrology is, at the end of the day, very individual. We're not all experiencing the exact same things at the same time. So when we sit down together one-on-one, that's where I can do that fine tuning. And yes, we have challenges ahead, but we all have things that we can be looking forward to. So that is the goal of the reading that'll be on sale. It's a 24-hour sale on December 2nd. You have to be a sponsor of my Patreon to get access to that sale. It's a 30-minute reading. It's $100. And I've added some more reading slots between now and February. So if you want a reading and you have a really busy holiday season, don't worry, you can book out a little bit. Doesn't have to be right away. So if you are a Patreon sponsor, keep an eye on your inbox on December 2nd. This reading will be available for 24 hours, and that's it. Then we're moving on. If you're looking to book other kinds of readings, I've also refreshed my menu of services, so you can go check that out. Readings make really great gifts for someone who may be interested in astrology, and I just want to offer that supporting a small business like mine is a lot better than giving your money to Amazon or Target or wherever else you're buying your holiday stuff. And if you'd like to give the gift of Patreon access to someone, Patreon now offers gift memberships. So you can buy someone access to my Patreon or another of your favorite creators. As we move forward, it's going to be more important than ever that our money talks for us. So when we can keep money in our own communities or invest in truly good small businesses, not the ones that are, exploiting people behind the scenes, then we're investing our resources in a world that's probably a lot more like the future that we're hoping to manifest. I want to thank my patrons because they support my small business every month and they allow me to do what it is that I do and to grow Petty Astrology and all of the other things that I want to do with astrology. So very special thank you to them. And if you'd like to become a sponsor of this podcast, you get all kinds of goodies to thank you for your support. And it starts at just $5 a month. You can find the link to do that in the show notes. That's it for this episode. Tune in next week for even more petty astrology.